Hey, welcome to video 6 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to learn all about how to tune the guitar. Learning how to tune your guitar is really important because you can be a great player, but if your guitar is out of tune, you're not going to sound good. So by the end of this lesson, you'll know the things that you need to make your guitar sound great and in tune. This is going to be a pretty long lesson because I want to make sure that nothing was left out for you. We're going to break it up into 3 basic main parts. The first part is going to be tuning theory and tips. The second part is going to be tuning the guitar with an electronic tuner. And the third part is going to be tuning the guitar by ear. So if you already know how to tune a guitar with an electronic tuner, you can skip to the part on tuning by ear, or if you know how to tune a guitar altogether, you can just skip this lesson. Let's get into some things that you're going to need to know in order to tune the guitar. You've already learned the names of the open strings of the guitar. E, A, D, G, B, E. The next thing you're going to need to learn is the natural musical alphabet. And again, this is really simple, but you have to know it. The natural musical alphabet is just the first 7 letters of the regular alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now we need to talk about the concept of a note being sharp or flat. If you see a natural note with a little sign that looks like a B next to it, a lowercase b, that little sign is a flat sign. And that, in the context of tuning, when we talk about a note being flat, that means that the note needs to come up a little bit. A sharp sign looks like a little tic-tac-toe sign. And in the context of tuning, when we talk about a note being sharp, that means that the note is a little bit too high and it needs to come down a little bit. When you look at an electronic tuner, it's going to have a couple of ways of telling you if a note is sharp or flat. And those 2 ways generally are either lights or needles. If the lights on your electronic tuner are off to the left, that means your note is a little flat and it needs to come up. If it's off to the right, that's telling you that your note is a little bit sharp and it needs to come down. Also, you could have a little needle that basically does the same thing. If the needle is off to the left, it's telling you that your note is a little bit flat and needs to come up. If it's off to the right, it's telling you that it's a little bit sharp and it needs to come down a little bit. Learning how to tune the guitar can be really tricky at first, and like anything else on the guitar, it takes practice to get good at. But if you do practice it, you will get good at it. So to get started, I want to give you some tips that are going to keep you from breaking strings. I know it's really frustrating when you're learning how to tune the guitar. So the first tip I'm going to give you is make sure that you're cranking on the right tuning key when you're tuning your guitar. You can follow this string down. If I want to tune my D string, I got to follow that all the way down to this tuning peg. Because if I accidentally start cranking on the A, and I'm thinking, why isn't the pitch of my D string not changing? I'm cranking on the wrong tuning key. What's going to happen is I'm probably going to break that A string, and that's just going to be frustrating. So make sure, double check yourself, make sure you're tuning the right key for the string that you want to tune. The second tip that I want to give you to keep you from breaking strings is this. If you think you're going too high, too far when you're tuning your string, you probably are. So just stop, crank it back down, and start over. One thing you're going to want to do before you get started is just go to any string. It can be this E string, and just play with the tuning key. See how much turning makes the note go down, and see how much you have to crank on it to make it go up too. Just getting familiar with that will keep you from breaking strings. So we live in a time where there are just a ton of options for tuners. There are clip-on tuners, pedal tuners, just handheld tuners like this. And it doesn't really matter which one you have. You can get a good tuner, just a handheld or a clip-on for 15 or 20 bucks. If that works for you, great. Today I'm going to be using my iPad, actually an app on my iPad to tune the guitar. Those work really good too. So I've got my iPad pulled up here with just the tuner app. And one thing I want to show you before we get into actually tuning the guitar is if you have a calibration setting on your tuner, you want to make sure it's set to A440, because if not, if it's a little bit off, you're going to sound out of tune from everybody else that you're playing with, or if you're playing with a track or one of your favorite songs or something like that. So make sure that's set to A440. So let's actually get into learning how to tune the guitar with an electronic tuner. We're going to break this down into a 2-step process for you. The first step is to get each string to the proper note name. So if you're tuning this low E string, you have to get it to an E first. After that, you want to fine-tune that E note to where it's right spot on. So let's just take this real quick. Our low E string, I threw it out of tune earlier, and it's saying that it's a D sharp, which is not right. It's a little bit low. Now it's up to an E. That's our first step. We've matched the note name, and that's correct. But as you can see, it's a little bit low. So now you have to fine-tune it. to an E. A little bit too high. There you go. Okay, now I'm gonna throw the rest of this guitar out of tune just randomly, and we can work on our tuning that way. And that's a really good way to practice tuning too, just by the way. So let's try to get the rest of this guitar in tune. So let's go to our A string, and that's telling me that it's a G sharp. Now, once you get in your musical alphabet, once you get all the way to the G, you come back around to the A. So if it's a G sharp, it's telling me that this string's a little bit flat and needs to come up to an actual A note. Okay, now we got it to an actual A. Now we're gonna fine tune it to where it's right on the money. That's good. And one tip I wanted to give you here is always tune up to a note if you can. If you overshoot a note and go too far, a little bit sharp, come back down and try to tune up to that note. That helps your string stay in tune better. All right, next note. This should be a D, and it's telling me it's a D sharp. D sharp is after a D, so it's telling me that it's a little bit too high and we need to come down. Okay, now it's a D, but it's still a little bit sharp because the needle is off to the right. So we'll keep coming down till it's on the money. And remember, always tune up to that note. There you go. Okay, what's the name of the next string, the third string? It's a G, right? Should be a G. It's telling me it's a G sharp, and we don't want a G sharp, we want a G, so we need to come down a bit. Okay, it's a G now, the note name matches. And there, it's a G. Make sure to tune up to the note. Now do you see why it was important for you to learn the names of the open strings for the guitar, right? Next string over is the second string. It should be a B. And it's telling me it's an A sharp, which means that it's low and it needs to come up a bit. Okay, it's a B now. It's a little bit low still. And there you go, right on the money. Next string over should be what? An E, right? The first string. And that's an E, but it's telling me it's a little bit sharp. So we need to come down some. So always go under the note and then come up to it, right? And now we're pretty close to being in tune. I always go through and do that again just because since guitars are made of wood, they kind of change when the tension on the strings change. So I go through and tune the whole thing again, and then you should be in tune. So do what I just did. Mess up your guitar, throw it out of tune, get your tuner, and practice tuning your guitar. Match the note names first of the strings, and then fine tune the string to be right on the money. Let's move on to learning how to tune the guitar by ear. This can be pretty intimidating for a lot of players if they don't have a musical background, but I'm gonna give you some tips that are gonna allow you to tune the guitar anywhere, even if you don't have an electronic tuner available. So you're not always gonna have an electronic tuner with you everywhere you go, but if one of your strings on your guitar is close to being in tune, then you can tune the guitar to itself. So let's just say our low E string was close to being in tune, okay? I'm gonna teach you something called the 5th fret method that you can use to tune the rest of the guitar to that low E string. What I'm gonna do is just throw this guitar out of tune just a little bit here and there, kind of randomly, like it would be if it's been sitting in the corner for a long time. And what you're gonna do is go to the 5th fret of the low E string. That note is an A note. And if you remember, the open 5th string should be an A note too. So that note on the 5th fret should sound the exact same as the open 5th string. Not even close, right? The idea is to match this open A string to the sound of the 5th fret of the low E string. And this takes practice. My ear is telling me that it's a little bit low. So I just brought it up and tried to match those two notes as best I could. Okay, next string over. Now we need to tune the D string, or the 4th string. What we're gonna do is go to the 5th fret of the A string. And that note is a D note. So this 5th fret of the A string, this D note, should be the same as the open D string. And And my ear is telling me that that D string is a little bit sharp and needs to come down some. Let's try it again. There you go. Okay, next step in the 5th fret method is to tune the G string. And what we're going to do there is play the 5th fret of the D string. That's a G note. So it should be the same as this open G string. That's pretty close. It's a little bit off. And this takes practice. Experiment with it. If you can't tell if it's sharp or flat, or if it needs to come up or down, make it go down like a way far. And then come up, or do the same thing. If you can tell if it's sharp or flat, bring it way up. And if it sounds like it's getting further away, you know it needs to come down. Okay, this is where the 5th fret method kind of falls apart a little bit, or it changes. To tune the B string, we have to go to the 4th fret, not the 5th fret, of the G string, because that note is a B note. So we need to match that note on the 4th fret of the G to the open B string. And my ear is telling me that that open B string needs to come down. It's a bit sharp. And again, this takes practice, but your ear, the more you do it, the better your ear will get at telling if a note needs to come up or down. Now we need to tune the high E string, and to do that, our 5th fret method gets back on track. Go to the 5th fret of the B string, and that note is an E. So those two notes just sound the same. This one's really close. There you go. So once I get the guitar in tune by ear, again, just like when I was using an electronic tuner, I go through and do the whole thing again, just to kind of fine tune and make sure everything's where it should be. Tuning the guitar by ear can be difficult at first, but cut yourself some slack. It takes practice just like anything else on the guitar. Practice it on a regular basis and you'll get better at it. In the next lesson, we're going to go over strumming hand technique, so get ready for that. If you have any questions on tuning, you can leave them in the comments here below, or just email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See you in the next lesson.